Radio. The views expressed on this hour of program are those of myself and do not necessarily reflect the views of Kazoo staff or board of directors. The following hour of World Watchers is made possible in part by ARC Laser Optical Technology, a leading manufacturer of microcomputer peripherals located in Scotts Valley. For more information, call 438-7400. My name is Mae Brussell, and this is the second half of World Watchers. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, hi, Mae. Regan's speech tonight really ties in with a lot of what you were talking about tonight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he talked about how the United States is the beacon, the leader of democracy, and he mentioned that so many countries have become democracies since he's been in.
Oh, my.
Yeah, and when he took power, the United States was weak. He used the word weak, too.
Oh, yes.
And now we've become stronger since he mentioned how we've built up our defense, and that's made the Russians back down, and now they've come to signing the treaty and so on. So it's really something, but what you were talking about this commission.
Yes, isn't that something?
Yeah,
isn't it?
On one hand, he's making us sound good, of course. He's not going to say what we're really up to.
I know, it's so sickening. I mean, it's just so bad.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering how many people out there are buying it, or if people are saying, look, this is the, what SOS stands for. It's the same old you-know-what.
Yes.
And, or if they still hear his voice and get teary-eyed and say, oh, there's the great communicator. I really don't know. But one thing he said really struck home, and he mentioned that his presidency, or what we've been trying to do, that's a quote, he uses that, what we've been trying to do, he wants to make it permanent.
Yes.
Solution.
That's it. That's what I was reading. The commission will make it permanent.
Yeah.
His judges, over 250 judges, make it permanent. They threw out the special prosecutor this week.
Well, see,
prosecutors, plural. It's permanent. Don't worry.
Yeah, because, it's pretty scary because he's talking about democracy on one hand, and yet in democracy you're supposed to allow for change. And sure, we've had a change with him.
Yeah.
People voted him in, all right, but the fact that he doesn't want to allow, if he had his way or the people behind him had their way, whoever comes in next, like you said, whoever might get elected, they might not get too far.
Yeah, this isn't a democracy. The decisions are made. As a matter of fact, what I read last, was it August or so, about this commission being formed, and I had it on World Watchers, here's a group that's going to make the policy for the next 20 years. And we take these candidates so seriously. I mean, I look at them on TV, and I watched all the Democrats in Iowa, and all, Iowa and the Republicans, and I videotaped. I wonder, what are they saying? They're all the blah blahs. There isn't a thing that they have control of.
Yeah, I'm the guy who called up about Babbitt the other week. And,
yeah.
Like I saw him on TV, and he really struck me as being somebody who maybe be worth voting for, but as you said, how far is he going to go? I mean, he doesn't even seem to be in the running.
Oh yeah, one of the questions this week, I thought about your question, and Babbitt was on, and they said, well, do you believe that we were right to invade Grenada? This is the big choice. And he says, yes, I think we needed to do it.
Oh, boy.
That's Babbitt, so there you are. I mean, doesn't that just tell you everything about the man? What threat was there to us? If we had given them a little foreign aid, they would have had an airstrip and a hotel. We haven't put one factory into there. We just wiped out these people. And he doesn't say, well, if we had done something with it.
Yeah, well, that's one thing Hart seems to have addressed, that we shouldn't have invaded him. Well, look, I got to run.
Right, thanks for calling.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Okay, maybe some others heard something interesting in that speech. I didn't hear it. It'll be played again on one of the stations later tonight. I know that. I don't know if I can stand listening to it. It's reprinted in the New York Times. You can get it there. Hello, you're on the air.
It was pretty sickening.
It was?
It's sort of like he's not... Even though he is sort of the stand-up actor of Big Brother, he's not even Big Daddy, he's Big Granddaddy.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of it, I was listening, He opened up with domestic stuff. Did you know, by the way, that we're spending more on education than we're spending on defense? He said that.
Oh, God.
And then he got up with this. He was the total actor. I didn't see it. I was just listening to radio, but it sounded like a college fraternity. There was a lot of cheering off and on. And at one point, he's lifting up these big 1,000-page, 14-pound documents that are bills that have been sent to him.
Yeah.
And he's doing the thud factor where he lifts it up, apparently, and then drops it on a table to the side of the podium. You hear this big thud. And he's saying, don't ever send me one of these again.
Well,
You know,
that's because the Boland Amendment was attached to one of those.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
And the lies and the discrepancies and the half-truths and all the rest that were rampant throughout. And then throughout it, all of this kind of clap, clap, cheer, cheer kind of shit. At one point, there was some commentary afterwards I was listening to. One guy apparently was watching on the TV, on the radio, and he was saying that on the Contra-Aid part, there was no stand-up stuff the way there had been for some of it. It sounded on the radio like they were clapping a lot.
Yeah.
But during the Contra-Aid thing, it was like it looked like he thought only about a third of the people were clapping.
Yeah.
And the whole, the double contradiction, triple talk kind of lies where we're so strong and we're making all these great new markets, so i.e. we can exploit them and rip them apart. And this whole triple talk of the family and greatness for America, but then we're going to go murder these Nicaraguans because they're not playing ball with us.
I know.
It really, really, really disgusts me.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Yeah.
Listen, I appreciate your calling and sharing your feelings. It is really sad. And as I say, besides that, these Machiavellian people like Brzezinski and Kissinger and the admirals and the generals deciding that some areas will have a continuous war for the rest of their lives. It's so sad. These native populations who never going to have the goodies of this world are starving to death. And I guess we turn the Marxists in Ethiopia against the starving and, play one against the other. And in Mozambique.
All in the name of freedom fighters.
In Angola, and we have these low intensities that they say will go on forever, like the 100 Years' War. We'll give both enough weapons that they keep killing each other off, and we'll watch them like the Roman Colosseum.
Absolutely. The guy that you mentioned, I forget his name, the guy you'd mentioned last fall, who was up for possible conferment on this whole counter-guerrilla crap.
Oh, yes.
And then this thing that I heard recently they've been talking a lot about, of Kissinger and Brzezinski and all these other guys getting together, and we're going to tell exactly what's going to go down, so no matter who gets in, we'll let them know where they stand when they step into the Oval Office next January 20th.
That's right. And I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of that guy.
You said he looked like a RoboCop.
Oh, yes. I just read something about the wooden men. There was a description in NACLA, that magazine, and I'll have to put that on the air next week about the wooden men. A man went back to Uruguay after 20 years. And his name is Kenneth Bergquist.
Bergquist, right.
Bergquist, and Carlucci and Weinberger want him. And there's a picture in the Washington Post of this square face and this square jaw, and he looks like these beady eyes, like the man that's never smiled, that's perfectly programmed.
Right.
And he's supposed to be, it's called the Special Operations Command.
Right.
And it's for low intensity conflict. They have SOLIC, Special Operations and Low Intensity Conflict. That means keep the wars going forever. And he doesn't look like there's a drop of blood in his veins. And next week I'm going to do more on Frank Carlucci and this man. They're just so bad on the corruption of Carlucci and this particular person. It's just really scary. It's identical to having a robot. I've never, we've seen these slimy people in and out of Washington. I call them the little beady eyes, like William Colby and Caspar Weinberger and some of these CIA directors. Their long, thin mouth that never bends or smiles, and these little tiny beady eyes. But this guy, Kenneth Bergquist, he's really scary to look at.
It's like the epitome of the arrogance of power.
Oh, even like the brainwash. If Michael Aquino has a certain look, Kenneth Bergquist has another. It's a type that I'll tell you where you see it in science fiction.
Yeah.
It's that kind of, what was that thing they had this past year on television, on the cinema, the comedy cartoon? I don't watch TV too much. But there was a series, maybe somebody will remember it. He has that square head, and he looks, Gary Trudeau did some cartoons about that series, and this Kenneth Bergquist has that square head like a robot.
Well, it's like the worst of the male side of I'm going to dominate. I'm strong enough so I might make myself right. And you just cower and simper in front of me. And if you try and oppose me, I push you out of the way or I exterminate you.
I think it's even worse than the male. I mean, the male and female are parts you identify. This is somebody who has no sex. It's like a box or a piece of wood, as I say. It doesn't, maybe the position he's taking of that low-intensity conflict for the rest of his life. Can you imagine how much fun that would be?
Sure.
Okay, listen, thanks for calling.
You.
Bye-bye. Yeah, how would you like the job in charge of low-intensity conflict when you know that you'll never win the hearts and minds of the people, but you'll keep them fighting each other continuously? Just throw them into the pit and send arms to both of them if you can't deal with one or the other, and let them keep wiping each other out. And then I guess germs or bacteria would be the final solution, the neutron bomb, to ending the final conflict when you get tired of sending supplies, or if the people at home object to what's going on. 375-3082, this is Mae Brussell. You can talk about the president's speech or what you've seen. There's so much in the news, saying the illegality of the special prosecutor. And we talk about North, too. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, Mae.
Hello.
Can you help me out to find when Dave Emery's Mind Control series is going to be on?
Let's see. Call KFJC up in Los Altos Hills.
Okay.
That station is located up there. And ask them to have David, he doesn't answer his phone. I've seen him getting one of those phone machines. He never answers his phone. He doesn't answer his mail, so I don't know when it's on. But the tapes are available in San Francisco. You can get them. You want to hear it on the air, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'd be certainly willing to order them.
Yeah, I don't have the address of the place in San Francisco. I'll bring it in next week of where to get the tapes on Mind Control, but I don't remember that he said when it was going to be on. So, I don't know. So, as I say, he might call back from KFJC. He has a habit of not talking on the phone and not answering mail. So it's hard to get a message through. He's on Sunday nights. If you call up there, he's at the station, so he has to answer. He has a talk show. It's 7 to 10? So catch him about 9 there, and he'll get the phone number of the station.
Thanks. I certainly appreciate your help.
Okay.
All of it.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night. This coming Sunday, this is Sunday the 30th. Is it the 30th or the 31st? KKUP. Write this down. I'm glad this lady reminded me of the program. KKUP is going to have 14 hours. I believe it's 14 hours on Iran-Contra affair. And they're going to get authors from around the world and people from around the world, different writers. I'll name a few. I'll take the phone call. And Dave will do an hour, and John Judge, and I'm going to do an hour, and Barbara Honegger's going to do an hour, and I'll tell you some of the others on the Iran-Contra affair. Hello, you're on the air.
She would want the DAVCOR address.
No, it isn't called DAVCOR anymore. It's moved to San Francisco.
Oh, it's a different route. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Okay. Now, maybe another caller has the new address. I should have brought it in, but I didn't. Okay, you're on the air. Hello? Hello? Nope. Light went on. DAVCOR was up in Mountain View. It moved up to San Francisco. So we'll have to find out where that is. Yeah, there's going to be Jonathan Whitney, who wrote Endless Enemies and a book on the Iran-Contra affair. Hello, you're on the air?
Hi, Mae.
Yes.
A couple callers ago was wondering about the mind control on KFJC. Actually, at the moment, from 7 until 11 tonight on KKUP 91.5.
Yeah.
Nip and Dave are on doing the mind control.
On the mind control.
Right now. Yep.
Right now. Well, then they can't listen to the World Watchers.
Yeah,
How do you listen to both?
I got 2 radios and I'm taping the other one.
Okay, fine. Okay, that's the solution. If you have 2 radios, tape both. So it's not next week.
Lisa's one on tonight.
Okay, KKUP. And Sunday there's going to be 14 hours. Can you tape 14 hours?
No, but...
Yeah, that's good. They're trying to get Jonathan Whitney and Alphonse Chardy. I don't know if he'll do it, from the Miami Herald. And there's a list of people, Peter Dale Scott and Jonathan Marshall. They're going to have a 14-hour program on the Iran-Contra. They're trying to whip up some energy for people to get to their congressman on the vote on February the 4th.
Well, certainly tape as much as I can.
14 hours is a lot. Okay, bye-bye.
Hey, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now, this is 375-3082, Mae Brussell. And if you have some more on Reagan or anybody else, hello, you're on the air.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard today from a friend that Oliver North's been indicted on cocaine racketeering in Florida. I was wondering if you had read or seen anything on that.
No. Where did you hear that?
Well, this is, I read this on the ARPANET.
What's ARPANET?
Yeah, it's a computerized communication system used by many of the defense and large.
And it came through today?
Yeah, it came through today, but it's not an official announcement. It's just people talking, and there was an article there. This person said he heard this news on CNN, which I guess is a cable news network.
Yes.
And he went and he called some friend of his, which he did not name, which is supposed to have political connections.
Mm-hmm.
And all that friend of his would say, "How did you hear that? This is not supposed to be out, or there was a mistake."
Oh, really? You know, you could call CNN, and they're very nice with the news department. You get the area code in Atlanta, Georgia, from the phone company, not the area code, the phone, number. It's the area number. And dial 555-1212, and ask for CNN. I have the station number at home, and ask for the news department and ask them if it came over the wire service, and they'll tell you.
I'm going to try that. I'm also going to get back to the person that sent that message and see if they can get back and verify that.
Okay, because when I heard about the story about Hitler dying in Mendoza, Argentina, that CNN had this last February, I called them, and they traced the story. It took about 4 transfers in the offices, and they read the wire service over the telephone to me and then mailed me a copy. So that Oliver North, I didn't have time on the first part of the program, Oliver North lost his appeal to the Supreme Court he didn't want to turn over a sample of his handwriting. And I wondered whether that sounds so phony because he works for the government. He's in the Defense Department. They have every canceled check. But evidently he has forged some signatures, and I believed, because Ronald Reagan said that he didn't sign these findings about the arm to Iran, that Oliver North could have forged the president's signatures. North has been very quiet lately, you notice, and going to court every day, and I thought that maybe the bottom line of all this is that he was forging the president's signature on some of these papers. And but maybe it wasn't the forgeries of the president's signature. Maybe it had to do with the cocaine and some signatures or correspondence with the cocaine people in Florida that he was fighting.
Yeah, and this was specifically said to be in Florida that he's indicted.
Yeah, but I didn't know where the Supreme Court area, the special prosecutor, had a reason for wanting samples of his handwriting, and he could have gotten them from other sources, but this is all very legal, and he forced it through the Supreme Court that he had to give these samples. So maybe this is the consequence of the victory of the special prosecutor.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you call CNN and call us back?
Yeah, if I get any more information, I'll do that.
Okay, it's almost 8:20. You can call them in 5 minutes and see if they tell you what it is.
Okay.
I'll pay you back for the phone bill.
All right, don't worry.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let's see if Ollie North was involved. Of course, the basis of the Christic Institute suit, a lot of it has to do with a large, broad section of narcotics traffic, assassination, and the defendants there in drug traffic. And North was not named as a defendant, but his friend Robert Owen was, and Theodore Shackley and Thomas Klein. So maybe he's a part of it. Hello, you're on the air.
Yes, I gather that you didn't hear the president's speech tonight, right?
No, it started at 6, and I'm over here at 6:30, so I didn't hear it.
Okay, well, there's a lot to be said in one statement he made, not he made, but the people that were narrating the situation. Right?
Yes.
On public radio.
Uh-huh.
And they said that it was the usual amalgamation of people that usually show up at those kind of situations, right?
Well, it's the House, the Senate, it's the whole Congress.
Right, so every time you heard somebody stand up and clap, it doesn't tell you a whole lot.
Oh, no, it tells you that Mr. Simpson and Orrin Hatch and their family were all there, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
And a lot more.
Yeah, sure. He has some buddies on that side. He's got Jesse Helms and the whole gang, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So his support. Yeah, he has people that support him. Actually, the election for Congress, the last election in 1986, was a Democratic victory, but it wasn't overwhelming. There's not, a massive 40 Democratic majority over. It's just a handful. So there's still a lot of Reaganites around. Hello, you're on the air.
I basically just have information for you. The new thing to get the One Step Beyond tapes, which live for about 4 weeks after a One Step Beyond broadcast, and all the archives, is called Archives on Audio.
That's it. Archives on Audio.
Post Office Box.
Yeah.
170
170
023
023.
San Francisco.
SF.
94117
Yeah.
dash 0023. There's a phone number.
Okay.
415 346 1840, and that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay. One thing I want to say is that Dave does his broadcast like I do. I do the broadcast and don't sell any tapes, make no money, and it isn't a business. And Dave does broadcasts up on Camp JC, and they're taped off the air, and they get no money. They're not selling. This is just a public service where they're sold at cost and not at a big profit, so that it's just a way to make available for people the material that they want. It isn't any. A lot of the commercial tapes are $8 or $9 a piece, and these are around $3 or something. It's the time of copying and just as it's taped off the air. Hello, you're on the air.
I got on the tail end of that 14-hour broadcast. When and where?
Okay, on KKUP on Sunday. This Sunday, there's going to be I don't know if Sunday's the 31st or the 30th. I don't have a calendar here. I can't believe this is the 25th.
This weekend, in other words.
This weekend on Sunday, and they're going to have a whole lot of people. They want, they said 30 minutes minimum, 1 hour each, maybe 14 people. Jonathan Marshall, who has written a book on the Iran-Contra, he's works for the Oakland Tribune, and Peter Dale Scott and Jonathan Whitney, and they want Martha Honey and Danny Sheehan and David Emery, Barbara Honegger, John Judge, and myself, Jonathan Whitney. Let me see who else they mentioned. They want about 14 people talking an hour each on the Iran-Contra affair, the meaning of it, and the various areas of corruption of the government, and it should be very good. 14.
Starting about 8?
Huh? I don't know what time it starts. 14 hours. I don't know when it starts or when it ends. I'm not sure. So if it started at 10 in the morning, that's a long stretch to put on a program.
At 8 and end at 10 in the evening. Huh?
Yeah. So I have to decide what I'm going to do. I think, what are your suggestions? What do you think is important to get out on a broadcast like that? Not everyone knows of World Watchers, or that area they do, but if you make the tapes, what do you think is the important area?
Well, I probably emphasize what they've been emphasizing previously.
Yeah. I thought, for my part of the contribution, I think the amalgamation of Albert Hakim and Richard Secord and Theodore Shackley and Thomas Klein's working in the Bay of Pigs in Cuba, then going to Vietnam and then to Chile, involved with the assassination of Allende, and then in Iran, and then coming out to Stanford Technology, and all meeting and grouping there is important, how that organization was formed, how these people found a nest where they could lay their eggs and spread their wings to move into the National Security Council, how they all merged into this one corporation and how it was formed as sort of an umbrella for their future machinations and huge profits. profits off the American people overcharging for weapons such as at the time of the Camp David Accords and so forth, how they've taken money from the Defense Department, never been prosecuted, and worked with Frank Carlucci, who's protected them, who became Secretary of Defense.
See, Reagan in his speech today was harping about spending money on researching wildflowers and crawfish.
Oh.
But he didn't mention the $700 screwdrivers.
Oh, wildflowers.
$500 toilets.
Yeah, or the offshore oiling, right? Oil drilling. Oh, my God. Okay, if any of the other people have suggestions for what you think I ought to do for that hour, call up. Do you have any more questions or anything?
No, that's fine.
Thanks for calling. Okay, 375-3082. This is Mae Brussell. If you were going to have an hour next Sunday, what would you want to hear? Hello?
Hi, Mae.
Yeah.
I think what you just said is very good, is what you should talk about. I'm thinking there's going to be so much with all those other people, what they'll be saying. Something that you could particularly provide, in addition to what you just said, would be the origins, which you keep harping on, which I think is terribly important to understand. The origins of our CIA, the NSC, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
I think that's vital to go back that far, because I doubt if any of the others will.
I think it's vital. I think that is vital because while we think, well, we got Watergate behind us, we got Iran-Contra behind us, we have the next 20 years, then the next 20 years, and we have no choices. We are third world people.
That's right.
And they've put us into that low-intensity conflict where we're always fighting people.
That's right, and it's an international fascism straight out of Nazi Germany.
Exactly.
And I think if people can understand that, they'll stop feeling personally attacked like you're attacking us Americans.
That's right.
So I think that's something you might focus on, too.
Well, yeah, and these people not only made the decisions that brought Iran-Contra, but they haven't been totally unscathed by it.
Yeah.
There's been a thing that has affected them. When I turned on and watched the INF hearings this morning with George Bush, I thought, oh, my God, I've seen that face, that droning voice, that ugly face. He goes back and forth, and I can see him in the hearing rooms at Iran-Contra, and here he approves of arms to Iran and the money to the Contras against the Boland Amendment, and he still represents us. Vernon Walters,
Well, that whole secret team bit, I think that's what needs to be shown, the roots of it. And also what you mentioned tonight about that group and their 20-year plan and who they are and how that plan is going to be going on no matter who is put in the White House, so people stop thinking that it's going to make a damn bit of difference and get together and do something to really change something.
Yeah, because maybe you like that idea.
Get a second party going in this country. Forget this phony squabble between the two phony parties that are all one.
That's right.
And they're hog-tied anyway.
See, Henry Kissinger sits with Fred Eakley and Brzezinski on that commission for the next 20 years. Well, Ronald Reagan said, here's Central America, you head that commission, and he comes unscathed without this whole bloodbath.
Well, we need to uncover and keep pointing to the high cabal that Winston Churchill, among others, pointed to.
Well,
as high as he was talking about way farther up than him.
Yeah.
And it goes that far back.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that.
I think so, too. Yeah. I know that Danny Sheehan, he begins with Robert Mayu in 1959, and it began before that.
Well, that's fine and good, but that's a particular thing you can add, I think.
Is go beyond that.
Yes.
To where it
beyond that, and also pointing out how today their plan is to keep the other people in the third world supplied with arms so they kill each other off. What the hell do they think they're doing to people in this country?
That's right.
Keep the Republicans and the Democrats at each other's throats and distracted from what they're really doing.
That's
with
right.
their aides and the rest of it.
That's right. Okay. Thanks for that.
All right.
Bye-bye. Okay. Well, that's... any of you have suggestions for an hour on KKUP, or have we decided, or what else do you want to talk about? Hello, you're on the air.
Yes, hi, Mae.
Hi.
My suggestion for something on KKUP for you are bringing out the things that weren't covered.
Yeah.
And you're saying, they didn't touch on this and they didn't touch on that. And the psychological manipulation of Oliver North.
Yeah.
Because, the origins of the secret team and all of that, Daniel Sheehan certainly has all of the handle on.
Well, he doesn't go into Kissinger and Brzezinski or Haig. The people,
No.
The psychological manipulation of North. He's another glassy-eyed one who looks exactly like this Berquist, with that strong jaw like the Kenneth Berquist that, never at home, not really with the family, has a family, but is, separate and with these men and only intent on this, low-intensity conflict forever and forever. the manipulation of Ollie North, and what was the other thing you said?
The things that weren't covered.
Oh, well, yeah, but this is only 1 hour for May. You'd have to have 20 hours to do.
Yeah, well.
But not covered. One of the things that was not covered, another area I could do, is the conflict of interest of the very people examining the Iran-Contra, like Thomas Polgar of the CIA and Arthur Lyman, who represents Vesco, who's a partner of these people, and the financial offices of Willard Zucker and their ties going back to the investment overseas and the drug traffic and financial manipulations of secret teams. The very people investigating this are directly tied to the people that are being investigated.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the things I think.
So you think that's more important than the team?
Well, I think it is for you to speak upon it.
The investigators and the conflict of interest?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say one thing that a week or so ago you were talking about subliminal messages.
Yeah, I hear it, but I don't try not to look at it.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a minute. I have a lot of interest in the whole subliminal message routine and all of that stuff. I've worked in television a lot, and for a number of years, I know a lot of very powerful people in TV who are directly responsible for the programming. And if it ever came out that any of them ever even discussed and made any kind of decisions that they would send subliminal messages over through their programming, I would drop dead from surprise, because that isn't true. However, I absolutely don't believe that happens. But subliminal messages do happen and occur, and I would say that you would be more likely to look at the advertisers sending subliminal messages. And, when you think about who's advertising, who owns the company.
Take the commercial movie, say the new movie Wall Street, okay?
I'm sorry?
Take a new movie on a screen or a TV movie, okay. You may know the producers, and you may know, who made the movie. Like, there's a movie now on murder of a little girl, and this Leo Frank was blamed with this Jew, in the South was hung. The people, I'm not saying that the people who made the movies know that they're subliminal any more than people that make cornflakes know that the grocery markets have subliminal messages in the grocery store. What I'm saying is when the movie is all made and it's on the screen, you can simultaneously throw a subliminal over it.
Well, then it would be directly out of your television stations.
Well,
it's not with the actual producer.
Oh, no, I didn't imply. No, I didn't imply it was. It has to come, yes, out of the television station, they say, that puts it on, just like you make a home movie and then you can insert a background music to it later. You add the music. You can add those things once the film is done. I don't know the process of making subliminals, but it's added to the finished product. It has nothing to do with making the movie or the people that have the movie knowing there's a message.
Yeah, anyway, I'll tell you something. As I said, I worked in television. I built a television station from the ground up in Miami. And that it just doesn't happen.
Well,
television station owners, the money is too big. I mean, television is nothing but a money-making machine.
Does it happen at the movies when subliminally they tell you to go out now and buy popcorn and get a drink?
It's not supposed to.
Oh, they admit that does.
I know that used to, and that's directly done in the motion picture theater.
But they did it.
Oh, I know they did it, yeah.
Well,
they were caught at it.
Yeah, they were caught, and I read that part of the PTL was used for subliminal messages to us from the screen while you were watching PTL. It was used for subliminal messages.
Well, that's PTL.
No. They inserted it to the PTL stations. That wasn't their decision. Tammy Baker didn't decide, now we're going to send you a message. The powers that be that did the television mechanics, and you know more about that than I do, I understand used that for subliminal. That was one of the stations used for subliminal.
Oh, some particular station somewhere in the United States did that.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know the mechanics of it, but I would prefer not to sit and just look at the TV screen.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't.
Because knowing the possibilities are there, why guess? Why take a chance? It's like if I know that we're importing tomatoes from Mexico where the chemicals are so strong the field workers are dying from them and they're not allowed in the United States, but we sell them there. Why eat a tomato from Mexico in January? Why not wait till summer? I'm not saying all tomatoes have poison, but just why bother?
Yeah.
So the same thing, why bother looking at the screen when you know they have the technology?
Yeah, they do have the technology. I think it's very seldom employed. The television stations around here, you can easily find out who owns which TV station and consider the source.
Yeah, it could be I would have to get some books. I'm going to look that up because I have books on mind control, and I'll look up the subliminal and just see the actual mechanics of it, because I don't think many people, even where it would be put on, are aware of how it's done.
Yeah, well, it would be done through what's called a character generator, and it's flashed so fast on the screen that your eye literally doesn't pick it up, but your mind does.
Well, I have one of these cassettes, like how to lose weight, to be on a diet, one of these subliminal things, and you put in a cassette machine and it describes you're going to the beach and swimming and you're walking on the beach and you listen to the water splashing, and it's a 30-minute tape and you listen to it, and there isn't anything you hear except that you're at a beach and the water's splashing and you hear the low music. And in there is something that says you don't want to eat this starch, and you don't want to eat these calories. And they're lecturing to you. Somewhere in your brain, they're telling you when the hour is over, you've gotten a full lecture what you're supposed to do and not to do. But you have no way of knowing at what level that came into you because you're listening to the splashing. So how do you know that TV doesn't have the same mechanism?
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't have the same mechanism. It certainly has the same capability.
Yeah.
But the television station owners themselves are in it for the money because it's enormous money. You just can't imagine.
Yeah, but they don't lose the money of the programming, and they may get more money. The CIA and the intelligence community has a budget of billions of dollars in the National Security Agency, so there's money in doing what the government wants, too.
Well, there's another thing about it, though, too, because you have lots of competitors and people who would like to own that television station, and when your license comes up for renewal, or if you can prove something like that, and you lodge a complaint against a TV station, and their license comes into jeopardy, and they're going to lose their station, the owners truly are not interested. There's simply too much money to be made without doing subliminal message stuff.
This way, I don't think we're only probably guessing about whether or not it's done. The technology's there. The only reason that makes me think that the technology is used is that when I don't listen to TV and I sit and read a lot of my newspapers, I come across things that are actually startling and very challenging. And in 1 hour, I can only bring in 6 or 7 items, and then I have to leave home about 30 or 40 that I put in the files and hope someday that I'll be able to use that are really very disturbing articles. And the thing is that people today are not lacking information. It's coming at them everywhere, and yet they seem so subdued. I never lived in another time in history, so I don't know about it, but I never noticed less conversation or less concern or less even thinking about what they're seeing or less awareness of what they're seeing, such as that article or the series I had on tonight about for the next 20 years, these people have made the policies for a first strike against Russia, and they can aim within 3 feet of the goal. Now, you'd think somebody would be screaming and yelling, wait a minute, who puts this commission on? And the thing that concerns me is I try to find what is the common denominator that people are walking around like zombies, that they are in a state of sleep. If they read it, they don't even realize what they're reading. It doesn't make sense.
I think that most people aren't reading.
Well, somebody's publishing the papers, and somebody's buying the books, and somebody's trying to understand, because there's so many good books pouring out. You go to the bookstore and you look at the list, and so many exposés, and there's a big investment in those matters. In the Wall Street Journal, and in the Washington Post, New York Times, Reporters, Miami Herald, with marvelous investigative work. So it must be paying because it comes out day after day. And yet, after it's read, it's like people having food, not digesting it. There's no bells ringing on the talk shows. They're not talking about it. They're not writing letters to the editor. They're not responding appropriately to what they're seeing. And so I just ask myself, are they some way subdued?
Yes, and I think they're subdued through television, which is all of the programming is aimed at the 12-year-old mentality. And one of the reasons why that's so is because when you grow up, the emotional triggers, etc., that you had as a child are still with you, although they're buried.
Yeah.
And because television programming is literally aimed at the 12-year-old mentality, it seems so inane, and people still watch it because it goes back and triggers those 12-year-old emotional clicks.
So you think that even members of Congress that read that this commission is making policies for the next 20 years, you don't think there's one candidate that can't read that and have some comment about that?
Well, I think he could, and maybe that even he made a comment about it, but there's so much information out there, and the few newspapers that you named, I think by and large the majority of people aren't reading them.
Yeah,
they're not. Most people, who has time to read 7 newspapers a day?
Or 10.
Yeah, and they mostly would get their local newspaper.
Yeah,
that's the one that they would read. So, and the Wall Street Journal it's a fascinating paper, and it has information for everybody, but not everybody reads it.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Okay. So it isn't a absolute positive that it's coming through. It's just that I'm trying to find some reason. A lot of people, as you say, don't get the papers, but the people who get the papers don't respond. They're in a position of power and intellect having those papers. I'm not talking about those people who don't get it. Those who do get it are not bringing up the issues appropriately. They're on talk shows, they're interviewed. They never come out in the course of a conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure that there's several reasons for it, really.
There's probably a lot. Listen, thanks a lot for calling.
With pleasure.
Good. Okay, bye-bye.
Good night.
Okay, I'm going to have to get some more, or read the books. I have a lot on mind control, and see how far we've gone with the subliminal in the news media and so forth. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, I called in earlier, but I got some other comments to make.
Well, let me take one program. Actually, we should do the limit of one a month on some stations, but there's not that many. Call next week, okay? Let somebody else have a chance.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. I hate to cut off, but I think I took a long time with the last caller, and I think we should have a chance for a lot of people to call in if they want to. Hello, you're on the air.
Hi, Mae.
Hi.
On that reference to subliminals on television.
Yeah.
Well, looking through Tom's catalog to refresh my memory on what he sells on the media and television and so forth, there isn't anything that specifically refers to subliminals being broadcast through television. It should be pointed out that it wouldn't require the cooperation of the station owners because you can attach signals after the factory, as it were, with some of the various sophisticated broadcast equipment that exists now. It wouldn't be that hard to insert with very brief override high-intensity signals the same equivalent as a single frame subliminal effect that's put in from the beginning. And there's other various things besides the single frame trick. There's the quiet voices and the ghost images and the whole 9 yards. But the point is, the technology is to a point where if someone wanted to broadcast something subliminally, they could do it without anyone directly involved with the broadcast in the usual sense willingly participating. But frankly, they hardly need to, because if you've got a bunch of people who are willing to spend most of the time sitting in front of the TV...
watching the Super Bowl and all that.
Instead of doing something about what they're seeing on the TV, then you've already got them under control, and you don't really need to exert much else.
Yeah, but there are a certain, I don't know what percentage of people who say, take the newspapers that I cited, who also happen to like the Super Bowl or the World Series, but have a knack, they're in the business world, and they are investors, and they are movers and shakers, in some ways authors, Kurt Vonnegut or something. I think, a lot of the well-known writers and things who are absolutely mute on things that are going on now, that they should be rising up and yelling about. And Norman Mailer or Allen Ginsberg, I think of a lot of the writers, and there's no peep coming out of these people. They're neutralized, and I just wonder, what's the common denominator? I know they all watch Cronkite every night, or Dan Rather. What's the common denominator that makes these voices that used to be of some sanity or reason or fiery anger at things that were going on when Nixon was in, they are totally castrated now. They say nothing. What is it that has reduced these people to just mumbling around?
Well, probably to some extent, a lot of it may be the message delivered by eliminating so many people who were talking about it and making a fuss and being active and all that. I mean, the ones we've heard about are just a fraction. And when the history is all finally unraveled and the deceptions are ironed out, there's going to be an awful lot of people that we've just accepted as, suicides or accidents or heart attacks or whatever, that are going to turn out to be among the victims of this culling of intelligence and so forth from Americans, trying to breed a docile, obedient consumer mentality that that doesn't do anything but watch its TV for vicarious living instead of really participating in changing things. But it wouldn't be beyond them to have a subliminal broadcast saying, yeah, everything's cool, don't worry, nothing like this can happen here as long as you continue, not thinking and voting Republican and so forth. But it's hardly necessary, since they can control the content of what's in there, of what's being broadcast in the first place to such an extent, and most people will never hear the really good news, that does mean there's changes on the horizon that people are holding back. I mean, you get to see some of that as well as the real dire stuff that gets kept out of the usual media. At any rate, so, the option's there, but there's hardly any need to. They've got that so sewn up.
I suppose, and they make news as entertainment.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so bad,
Plus, you can show something totally earth-shattering to somebody, and 9 out of 10 of them won't even respond. It's just they're able to keep things so encapsulated mentally that they won't follow through on the implications of something.
Well, that's what worries me.
Well, how many people heard the conclusion of the church committee back in '79 and then just went on business as usual?
Yeah, that's right. Or the House Select Committee on Assassinations, where they talked about the men, that they couldn't identify the men in plural. And how many people actually heard that or read that when there was this probable conspiracy, but they couldn't identify the other gunmen? And, regarding Kennedy's assassination, very few people, it came out at the time, there were headlines, conspiracy to kill Kennedy, conspiracy to kill Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
But then, again, people didn't act appropriately when the headlines came out.
Well, it just goes to show, if you repeat a lie real loud 10 times, you'll blot out the truth that got into somebody's head. In most cases, got in there just with one repetition, So,
yeah.
So,
but even when they admit there was a conspiracy, people just go on saying there wasn't. There's no such thing as a conspiracy, and the committee uses the word over and over.
Yeah, well, I mean, the attitude of Tip O'Neill in his book, when he refers to that, the guy said that there was somebody firing from up on the grassy knoll behind the fence and all that, even in Tip O'Neill's book,
Yeah.
And yet he just goes right on from there and says, but I prefer to focus on the way Kennedy lived than the way he died.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's like, it wasn't what the Warren Commission said, and so what?
Yeah.
Never mind the implications of the fact that people got away from him and been running the country since.
That's right. That they all got promoted, the Armitages of the world, Yeah,
and you didn't see anybody, out, grabbing people and shaking them by the shoulders in front of the bookstores. Look, read page 178 and see what he says here. It's just ho ho hum. Another.
That's right.
It's like lies have become the status quo in politics to such an extent that they literally can pull off just about anything.
That's what that Tupper Saucy said, that lies become such that once you repeat a lie, you take it from the authority and then you repeat it and you become ignorant and you pass on the lies.
Yeah, well, it's really starting to wear down to a bare struggle between light and dark. Have you wrapped your wits around this satanic rituals shenanigans yet?
Yeah, well, I've done some. I'm going to do more next week.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for calling.
All right.
Bye-bye. Yeah, we'll get back to the satanic, but I think of that commission that was headed there by Fred Eakley as being a group of the satanic forces of evil. Those 13 people, 13 on the committee, the admirals and generals, really evil people. Hello, you're on the air.
Hello, Mae. I completely agree with the previous caller, and especially when you use the word breed. We've been bred maybe for 2,000 years to be, to think alike, and the distance have been killed off. I guess there just happens to have been more direct recently, but the process has been going on a long time.
Oh, yes.
So, in addition, something that's on the scene the last few years that wasn't in the Nixon times is the USA Today. Now, I know there's a lot of jokes about that, but when you think of it, just about every day since they started publishing a few years ago, they've had a picture of one of the two Reagans or their supporters, and then people see this every day. That adds to their, acceptance of the person as being the daddy or granddaddy figure.
Yeah, the father, yes.
Yeah, so that's even better than subliminal. It's right there.
Every day, every newsstand.
Right.
Oh, it's so sickening.
Isn't it? So we can add that to the list in addition to the repetition of the lies on the major three networks there on the hour.
Uh-huh.
And for instance, you mentioned, and it ties in with what you were going to talk about next Sunday, although that lady certainly did a terrific job about 4 or 5 calls ago of making all the suggestions, which you accepted. There was only one mention that I saw in the newspapers of the diversion of some of the IRA money to the political campaigns.
Oh, that's a good one, yeah.
Yeah, there was only one mention of that, and since it wasn't repeated, I guess people just plain forgot about it.
Oh, yeah, that is very, very important. I'm glad you brought that up because Carl Spitz Channel took over Western Goals after Larry McDonald went down.
Oh.
And I could go into the KAL. Richard Pearl worked for Senator Henry Jackson, and then Jackson died the day after Larry McDonald from a quickie heart attack, and then Pearl went into the Defense Department. He worked with Jackson, and Larry McDonald's Western Goals went to Carl Spitz Channel that directed the domestic elections, which he pleaded guilty. He was the first person, hasn't been prosecuted. Can you imagine? It's a year since he pleaded guilty. But to overthrow our own government, the money was used, the Iran money, for domestic influence in domestic elections.
That's right. I remember you referring to Jackson dying the day after. That's Senator Jackson from the state of Washington.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, in other words, he died out of guilt or something?
Oh, no, I believe they gave him one of those quickie heart attacks that Frank Turple and CIA people write about. And then, I did a graph on the effect of the KAL when it went down, because after the Korean airline went down with Larry McDonald and we were testing the Soviet systems over the place where the KAL was flying, Richard Pearl left the late McDonald, then went into the Prince of Darkness into the Defense Department, and Western Goals that McDonald handed went to the hands of Carl Spitz Channel North's crony and Oliver North's wife's father's on the board of Western Goals. And then Henry Jackson was in charge of Central American policy, and when that went down in 1983, September 83, then all of Central American policy was handed to Henry Kissinger, who was working with Oliver North down in Central America. So with Jackson out of the way, Pearl went to the defense, and Kissinger took over his commission to handle the Central American policies down there, which has been a bloodbath since, with Honduras bases, attacking Nicaragua, and from Costa Rica to Nicaragua, and El Salvadorian death squads, the Guatemalan death squads keep going on, So that there are a lot of transitions when the KAL went down, and Carl Spitz.
They did in Jackson, and at the same time.
I believe they did, yes, very quietly, because the excitement was on the KL. Most people didn't realize he was dead for months. That's the truth, It was all, they shot this civilian plane they knew was a civilian. Old Henry Jackson was buried, and he was in charge of Central American policy, was handed right over to Kissinger, who didn't have an appointment in the Reagan administration. Reagan came in January 81. And then Haig, his lackey, was in the Secretary of State. Then in comes Henry when Jackson's out of the way to take over Central America. So that Carl Spitz Channel's office was used for domestic elections and funding there and interfering with our processes at home.
I see.
Yeah, profit from Iran, yeah.
Well, one last item I heard you mention, you made a quick reference to Bo Greitz. He's the one you had on interview a few months ago,
yeah,
right?
Uh-huh.
I heard his name mentioned in connection with the American Independent Party. He's going to run...
Well, he says he wants to run for president. That was in the paper yesterday. He's under indictment for... They want to nail him because he was talking about Theodore Shackley and Armitage, so Richard Armitage. So they nailed him on using a false passport in Southeast Asia, and the court case is coming to trial this next week. So he wants to run as president. So
that's the party that George Wallace ran.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but at least he'd get a voice heard. You know, I don't know what he would do.
You haven't heard from him or what he was going to...
Well, his close friend called me last week, and I was going to send him... Oh, my mail is about 100 letters behind. They called me, his group, last week, and I mentioned the connections of Kung Sa to the Italian Stiebbaum and the Kung Sa's narcotics coming into Italy. This team linked up with Banco Ambrosiano, and I knew Bo would want that, and he was supposed to call me this last weekend. I didn't speak to him, but they're waiting for me to send some material, so famous last words, I'll do it this week, but they did call me this week.
But he hasn't followed up on what he said he was going to do. He was going to, well, maybe I don't have that straight, but from the interview, I thought he was going to pursue further from the information he got from you, but
it's very hard for him to do that when you're under criminal indictment by this gang. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Now I have about 1 minute. I see Jim Bourne outside ready to put on some jazz for you, so you have one quick call, and we'll just take this one. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, Mae, have you been saying that Henry Kissinger is currently employed by the U.S. government in some post in the Reagan administration?
No, I'm saying Henry Kissinger employs the U.S. government. No, Henry Kissinger...
What about the Central American connection?
Reagan hired him to set up a commission on what to do with Central America, so Central America looks like Vietnam did, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. Wherever Kissinger goes, that's what it looks like when he's through.
So that's
whether it's in Chile.
You've talked about.
What?
That's the Kissinger Commission you've talked about.
Yeah, of Central America. Yeah. Now, Henry
Kissinger.
Yeah.
What were the dates on that?
Oh, the Kissinger Commission. The KL went down in August 29th, 1983. The Kissinger Commission was about September 15th or so, October. But Henry Gonzalez from Texas, and I've had this on the air many times, had asked in 1983 who were the members of the organization known as Kissinger Associates, because he wanted to know if the State Department was leased to Henry Kissinger, and he also referred to Henry Kissinger as the hired gun. And this was on the floor of Congress. This is in the congressional record. So the State Department is leased to Henry Kissinger. They aren't hiring him. He uses them. Okay, that time is up. Bye-bye. Okay. Now, I can't take any more calls. That's all for this evening for calls on World Watcher. This is Mae Brussell. And before I conclude, I want to say the previous hour of World Watchers was made possible in part by ARC, Laser Optical Technology, a leading manufacturer of microcomputer and peripherals located in Scotts Valley and available by calling 438-7400. And once again, the views expressed are those of myself and do not necessarily reflect the views of Kazoo staff or board of directors. This is Mae Brussell. I'll be back with you next week to continue some more of World Watchers.